Hello, welcome to the Bigger Truth Podcast. I'm Scott McMahon, and I am so glad that you've joined us. I'm sorry that we're a few minutes late. We had some technical difficulties, but we are here now, and this is a really important show. We're going to get right into it. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, X, and Rumble, wherever you are. If you could please like and subscribe, you're welcome to comment, and your comments help us to expand so that we can reach more people. I believe that the work that I and my guests and that we're doing here in exposing this nationwide operation to infiltrate not only the Republican Party but the conservative right within our party, and with false narratives to advance the Marxist agenda. I think that this is the most important and mostly untold story in this country. And so if you can help to get this word out by liking, subscribing, and also supporting me financially by becoming a member on my Substack. I do a members only podcast every week, and I'm working on adding more and more value to my paid subscribers. So I'm very grateful for you. We're going to get right in. This is very, very important. We're doing this. We kind of do the spur of the moment because we're looking at the state convention here on Saturday, and the election for RNC Committeeman, Committeewoman is a very important election. And I think especially in Arizona, in part because of the candidates that are running. And so this is the reason why we're having this right now. And first, Lori Klein, we're just so blessed to have Lori Klein Corbin. And Lori is an RNC, she's currently RNC Committeewoman. And I would guess, I did not know 4 months ago, when I started really doing this research in earnest, I did not know what the RNC committee really did. And I think that I would venture to guess that many, maybe not most, but many state delegates in Arizona, and this is helpful, I think, for everyone nationwide to understand what does the RNC actually do? What does the RNC Committeewoman do? And what really are the qualifications for the position?
Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate everything that you're doing to enlighten everyone. And you're absolutely right. Wherever I go around our state, nobody knows what the Republican National Committee does. Many of them think it's a grassroots position, but the reality is it's not. It is a board position at the Republican National Committee whereby you elect the leadership of your party at the national level. You sit on committees, and I'm on the Rules Committee, Election Integrity Committee, and Faith Outreach Committee. And every committee has different purposes, different projects that we work on, and also there's resolutions, and there's all types of things. Our platform committee, and it's about what do we represent as Republicans. And we're here to serve the state. We're here to serve on the board so that we can be effective in winning elections and getting our message out as Republicans. So it takes a certain temperament. It takes a certain commitment. You cannot blow up the Republican National Committee. You cannot go, you're here to serve your chairman of your state to win elections. You're here to serve the National Republican Committee in order to support the next convention and stand and not play in primaries. We are not allowed to play in primaries. So we don't want people in this position that will not keep discipline to be able to support the general election candidates and not play in a primary. Because what happens when your leadership, like the chairman, myself, and committeeman, if we chose to play, we divide in our base. And then we lose our general elections, unfortunately. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we are here to represent. The qualifications is just that you're a precinct committeeman and state committeeman. That's the qualification. However, you really need to be mature, and you're not here to virtue signal about yourself or be a narcissist or use it as a bully pulpit in any other way than to support us winning elections. So if you don't want a ballot chase, if you don't want to win over the Democrats and do what Trump wants us to do, because right now there's no difference between Trump victory and the RNC, they are one. So we need to be making sure that we elect people that want to win and that are committed to doing so, and that it's not about them.
Very good. Very good. So, I think Bloody Laser says, and the National Committee men and women are on the AZGOP EGC. That's the Executive Guidance Committee.
Correct.
Yeah. So 2 weeks ago, I had Kim Owens on the show, and she was running for RNC Committeewoman, and she in part used that show. And if you haven't seen that show, it was excellent. I think the most, from what I understand, most people that are within the AZGOP have seen that show, and that might be state delegates. Many have, anyways. If you haven't seen it, it was really good. We talked about lots of things that are going on within Arizona, but she also used that show to step down in her race and support Chris Morrissey, in part because she said that she believed that, and many have agreed with this, that Liz Harris would actually be a danger to the Republican Party and to the RNC, that she would not represent the Republican Party well at the RNC. So Morgan, we have Morgan Perry, who's the LD4 chair, and I haven't introduced you yet, but and I'm so grateful for both of you for being here. But Morgan actually has a lot of direct personal experience with Liz Harris that he is very courageously willing to come forward with, and so encouraged because from what I've seen, Liz Harris engages in the same types of personal attacks that Brian Harris and many others do engage in within the party. And so, I'm sure that we will, and for Lori as well, this is something that, I think we're all coming forward here with a bit of courage, knowing that, we're going to, sometimes it's not easy to speak the truth, and, that there's consequences. And so we're all willing to face those because the truth needs to be told. So with that, Morgan, let's talk about first, what the canvas that of 2020, really 2021, the canvas that Liz Harris led is really what brought her into national prominence and made her into something of a household name on the right. It's what got her onto Steve Bannon's War Room and many other national talk shows. And this canvas was one where she was going door to door statewide and organizing people to go door to door to ask them if they voted, and how they voted, and questions like that. And so whether they voted early. I'm not sure exactly what the questions were on the canvas. So do you? And I know that you were involved too with election integrity efforts at that time. So did you have any experience with that canvas, or could you speak to that at all?
Yeah, certainly. And thanks, and pleasure to be on again, and to see you and Lauren both. So I'm looking at what Lori's doing on her camera. So yeah, I didn't have direct involvement in the canvas. I was kind of spooling up, getting very active. The year before, I had knocked on 1,000 doors for Marissa Hamilton in her campaign for mayor of Phoenix. And I was, distraught, as everybody was, over the steal of the 2020 election. And I was thrilled at the time that Liz was doing what she was doing. And I made a point to meet her and thank her and offer whatever I could at an event one time. And we followed up and we talked. And during the course of, I believe it was, maybe early summer of 2021, I offered and did put her in touch with a national level economist and statistician that worked in the Trump administration. And I basically wanted to give her help with doing analysis and making it top notch. And that person I had followed for decades because he was very much into defending 2A rights, and that was kind of a special interest of mine in terms of how it affected violence rates and so on and so forth. So I had followed this guy, I had developed a personal relationship with him, acquaintance with him, and I put them in touch. And when Liz came out with her report, it was disturbingly weak in statistics. Like just the basic use of language showed she didn't know what the heck she was talking about. And it was clear that she had gotten nobody's involvement. And that was disappointing to me. In addition, she just made glaring errors like the cover story of, this house had so many people, or this, never lived in, or had this many voters or whatever. And it was just wrong. And, she had changed it within hours or days of putting it out. So immediately I was kind of, aware, oh gosh, she's not doing that great a job. And I was disappointed. But that's when I started to know Liz Harris.
Great. So you said that, that there was, she didn't seem to have a clear grasp on the numbers or the processes or the laws relating, the election laws. That's kind of what you're.
Well, I'm not going to say those things so much as just like I have a dual master's background. One of them is in science. I had to go through several levels of statistical training, many courses, and defend my thesis and so on and so forth. And I had to learn a decent amount about statistics. And when she'd talk about, a statistical value of some kind, she just did not know what she was talking about. And she clearly didn't get anybody's input that did know anything. I mean, not a master's level like myself that doesn't work in statistics, and certainly not the national level guy that I connected her to. So that was disappointing to me in terms of the quality of the work. And then subsequently, a year or two later, I was put in touch with somebody who started questioning, not just started questioning, told me that they believed that she cooked her data. And knowing other people who worked closely with her who did not get, she did not share the data with from the canvas, all of it together made me start thinking, geez, I wonder if, she didn't do the basic level of review or, having somebody else look at her stuff as you would if you wanted to make a top flight report. And so those things were concerning.
So when I spoke with someone yesterday that has kind of direct knowledge of what happened when it was time to actually present information. So that on January 6th, there were, I believe, a group of state legislators that were going to, and possibly U.S. congressmen that were going to be there on January 6th to present in part the evidence here from Arizona. And this was a big part of it. I mean, Liz Harris had gone around saying that she had hundreds of affidavits and she had all of this she'd accumulated from this that proved that there was election fraud beyond a shadow of a doubt. And what I was told was that these hundreds of affidavits immediately before they were to board the plane, these hundreds of affidavits turned into 20 affidavits. There were only 20 legitimate affidavits that were produced, and it wasn't the case that they had been promised. Can you speak to that at all?
Well, I think I can speak to it in that I've heard the same thing. I don't know if it's from the same source as yours, but I have heard the same thing. I don't have personal experience of that. But again, like you were starting to build a picture of, a lot of, kind of over promising, under delivering type of stuff, and potential issues with not having review, not having what she claims to have. So just very concerning. And then, of course, I've learned a whole lot more about Liz Harris in the succeeding time, not specific to the canvas, but lots.
So then and at that time you were following her, and she started a podcast. She was doing a daily podcast, which I believe she still does. She did and sometime this week, I think she did a 3.5-hour podcast just in response to my 4 podcasts last week. So she is still doing that podcast, but you had mentioned some things that you had observed in those podcasts.
Yeah. Well, the most disturbing one was, I watched from time to time. I mean, it was very, it consumed a lot of time, and I don't generally spend that much time. But one time I was watching, and And at the outset of her podcast, she was just gushing about this episode, that she had this guy that she watched this episode of his podcast, and it opened her eyes, and oh my gosh, this is the most revealing thing, and it pulls all of it together. You've got to see it. And so the rest of her podcast was this guy's podcast. This guy is a guy named Phil Godlowski. And I don't know if that's the right pronunciation of his name, but Godlowski. And his whole thing was showing pieces of 2000 Mules, and literally in a scene, he'd stop it and he'd say, well, you see that image on the shelf behind over the shoulder of the person being shown, that means this and that and the other thing. And oh, you see this this spreadsheet on the computer screen, I know that this is, intelligence community X, Y, and Z, and just over and over and over. And I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And so I'm like, well, Liz, hailed this guy like it was, gonna open everybody's eyes. So I decided, well, I'll dig in and find out who this guy is. Well, it turns out Phil Godlowski is a convicted child sex offender. He worked as something in sports, I think, in school, and he was convicted of interactions with a student or there or several students there. All right, good. Lori's back. And not only that, and I didn't share this with you before, but he's literally a flat earther. That's the nature of this guy. And he has video clips out there that clearly say, he's a grifter and he knows how to fake people out. And this is how he does it. This is his techniques. This is how you deliver your lines so that it comes off as convincing. Unbelievable lack of discernment from Liz Harris to think that this was what we need. And if she still believes in this guy, that's the nature of what Liz Harris will believe in. So yeah. That was very disturbing to me, being somebody that had supported and thought very highly of Liz.
Sure. And we're building a case here that includes many different data points. But one of the consistent themes that I've heard, both from your notes that you shared and also from speaking to others about Liz Harris, is that she tends to make unwise associations with people. Lori, are you okay there? Are you able to hear us, Lori?
Okay.
Okay. Lori, can you hear us?
I can't hear you guys. Sorry.
Okay. Unfortunately, Lori's she's having technical difficulties, but so the that pattern is interesting. So let's go right into unmuted. Can you hear us, Lori? Still no. Okay. So the next big event. So we had the canvas, and there was she kind of rode that popularity that she and all the publicity that she received from that canvas to become a state legislator. And she was on the House, and she had a very short term on the House, and she was only there for a few months. And the reason why was because of this John Thaler scandal. Yep. And what that was she presented some information. She said that she was going to have an election integrity hearing in front of the state Senate, I believe, right? And in front of the whole body of the state Senate. And
well, it was a committee. So, but it was, I believe it was a joint committee between the Senate and the House.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great. So it was a joint committee between the Senate and the House. So there are representatives there from of the House and the state Senate. And this was supposed to be an election integrity hearing. And then what happened was not that. Dan, do you kind of want to describe what happened there?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, there's a whole bunch of background on this, but Liz, the hearing happened, and Liz was part of it, and apparently Thaler and Brager, the one who actually presented, Jacqueline Brager, because Liz leveraged voting against the Republican majority, the thin majority, to get this hearing. So she basically, negotiated hard, sold out her Republican colleagues to get what she wanted, and so she got it, and this is what she got, and she lied about, and I say that very deliberately. She lied about having colluded with Greger and Thaler ahead of time, knowingly deceiving the state legislature and the committee and the chair to get this testimony brought before the committee, and then was found out and lied about it more. And then evidence came out that she had, in fact, hard evidence, like documentation, that she had specifically colluded on how do we get this testimony in, how do we make sure that we're not cut off, all of these strategic tactical plans on how to get what they wanted against what they knew to be the rules of the committee, et cetera. And then she just continued to lie about it. And, so it was a big bombshell, right? The whole sorts of allegations about, multiple judges and officials taking bribes and getting payment for cartels. And at the time when it came out, I was stunned, and not like I couldn't believe it. I mean, I think our officials are grossly corrupt, as we're seeing against Trump, for example. So it's not unthinkable. But I was, while thinking, yes, this is a strong possibility, I wanted evidence. I wanted to see the evidence. And, 2 years on from it now, is that where we are? Maybe just 1.5 or a little bit over 1. We still have not seen convincing evidence. And so Liz threw out from before and colluding to having it happen, and then lying to the legislature. She lied to the investigation within the legislature. She changed her testimony when the hard evidence against her came out. And then she got booted. And then the MCRC, county leadership, the EGC meeting, the EGC and the county leader, Craig Berlin, chair, called an emergency meeting to scold the legislature on Liz's behalf, because Liz is part of that cabal at the MCRC EGC. And we spent hours, I think it was 4 hours, deliberating over, how to word our scolding of the legislature for punishing Liz for flat out lying over and over and over and never accepting responsibility for what she did. That's what we did. And even in that meeting, the EGC meeting that, again, lasted hours, and I was there the whole time, and then represented LD4 there as well, I got an opportunity to ask questions. And so I asked Liz a simple question. I said, why did you change your testimony to the legislature? And I was just kind of floored by her response. She said, and I remember it pretty clearly, she said, I don't recall changing my testimony to the legislature. And I just, given that I thought it was well documented and well known, I kind of was like, what? In real time, I was kind of like, what do I do with that? Like, what angle is she playing? So I asked her again. I said, you're telling us all that you didn't change your testimony. And she then kind of doubled down and said, I didn't change my testimony, and I won't until I die, or the day I die, or something like that. I was like, wow. And so I think I said to the EGC, I said, well, that's not true, and I'm going to prove it before this meeting's over. And so I quickly got on the line with some PCs who were not in the meeting and who could get me the information. Sure enough, they got me the documentation from the legislature. So this is like official public document that cites that Liz changed her testimony in the wake of documents of her texts with these other people coming out. This was not soft evidence. This was hard evidence that Liz was colluding with these people to deceive and undermine the processes of the legislature.
Yeah.
And so so I called her out, and Craig Berland literally shouted me down because he didn't want this to be heard.
Wow. And that, that just the behavior, not just of Craig Berland, but of, his leadership there at MCRC is beyond the pale. And we've discussed that quite a bit. I do want to share, Dan Farley says, Liz, he shared this website, Liz Harris, expulsiontruth.com. I'm going to have this in the show notes, but this provides some of this hard evidence that I suggest, that I suspect that you're talking about there, that you provided. But this has screenshots of her actual text messages with John Thaler in advance of this, where it clearly shows that she knew exactly what he was going to be talking about. She there's clear collusion with them to be implicating other legislators there in things that without any evidence. And Bloody Laser says she got President Peterson's permission for a joint hearing. You need both the speaker and the president for it. She got the hearing because she was holding up the state budget. So she was actually holding the state budget, saying that she wasn't going to vote for or allow a vote on the state budget until they had done this, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. So Laura, do you have anything to share about about that, her expulsion, and do you have any comments or anything on that? Just from your witnessing of that. I know that you weren't there directly, but
no, I've heard everything that everyone else has said, and I think that I've heard also that she knew that this person was not a credible witness 2 weeks before she brought him in. So that questions in my mind what the purpose of this was. And, and coming from a committee woman, I don't know Liz Harris. I've never met her. She's never come to talk to me about the role of a committee woman, what you do. I mean, this is an unpaid position. I've been in it for almost 8 years. I have spent over $50,000 of my money to be National Committee Woman. We have to pay for every meeting we attend, our airfares, our hotels, and we have to go to at least 4 mandatory meetings a year. And our purpose is not to create drama. Our purpose is to support our presidential nominee, obviously, Trump at this point, and to win elections. So we don't need to have drama. We don't need to have anything like that in this position. It is a position for mature people that want to get down to the business of winning and respect one another and not be ethically challenged, which everything that Morgan is saying leads me to believe that if someone has difficulty with integrity or being honest, there's a big problem with that. And it's what I say and what I do. And, I am not going to get involved in the primary, even in my own election here, as I cannot. However, I think the facts need to come out about the candidates. And so I'm glad Morgan is addressing this, and I'm addressing what the temperament and what it means to stand in the power of winning elections for Republicans and working together, not being divisive.
Yep. So Lori Sugar says, I have asked you repeatedly on X if you'd allow Liz and some of the others to have a fair say on your podcast. And I'm not familiar with repeated requests. However, what are you afraid of? The real truth. There's only one truth. And I think that's something that should unite all Republicans. And we understand that truth based on evidence. And what we're talking about is evidence. And if I would say right now that if Liz would like to come on my show in order to present evidence that contradicts anything that we're sharing here, that she'd be most welcome to do that. And maybe that's something that, Morgan, if you'd like to come on that show, that might be a really excellent show.
Well, I already have a really fun experience with Liz of her claiming that she has all this evidence that she was going to share with me.
Yeah. And And that's something that, Liz, I would say if you're watching this, any evidence that you have, please make it public, because to my knowledge, the only real evidence that you have produced is those 20 affidavits. And, that there was a report, but I don't know, I have not seen any other evidence that you've ever produced to support any of your claims. So, and that's a big part of what this is about. If you're going to make claims, you've got to be able to support them. So, all right. So, and that expulsion that she had, that was pretty unprecedented. I mean, there have been expulsions for legitimate criminal behavior and that kind of thing. But to really, what she did is she kind of made a mockery of the state house and the Senate. It was embarrassing, not just for her and not just for the other state senators, but for the Republican Party as well. And that MCRC would actually support it and try to silence and prevent people from seeing the evidence that you had to share there, Morgan, is pretty shocking as well. Dan Farley says Liz Harris is not a collaborator. She's a liar, manipulator, using subjugation to glorify herself. And I think that that's pretty well put. So let's move on to, you had some also more personal kind of experiences, Morgan, that I think are pretty important to share if you're willing to.
Yeah.
You told me about a time that she actually, demanded that you go on a date with her. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. So again, lots of documentation. Much of this interchange was in text, and I have kept the text, and I've actually, sent it to you by email now. But so I was volunteering. I do a lot of stuff within the Republican Party, and I was volunteering last year at the Lincoln Luncheon, and it was hot. And I was there all day, or most of the day, from early till mid-afternoon, let's say. And I finally just decided, it's pretty well done. My work's done. I'm gonna head out. And Liz was there, and I knew that, and we hadn't said anything to each other. But she caught me as I was grabbing my bags to go. And first of all, she states repeatedly that she loves me and has always loved me. And I was kind of like, and I kind of took it, I think generously in the kind of brotherly, sisterly Christian love category, and said, okay. And then she proceeded to say that she had all this evidence that she never lied to the legislature, never lied to the MCRC. She would share it all with me. And I was like, great, I'm open to it. And we said goodbye. And then she started texting me that, she was eager to get the meeting going and share this with me. And she basically started making overtures that it was a dinner date. And I said, let's do like a, coffee at Panera mid-morning or something like that. That's more appropriate to what we're talking about here. And I just made very clear with her, look, I have no interest on that level. In fact, if it turns out that you're angling for something other than providing this evidence that you say you have, it's just going to piss me off, because I'm just not interested in anything other than what you claim you have and that you're going to share it with me. And if there's anything else like that, then, just not interested. And I'm not going to be distracted. And she literally just repeatedly went after this dinner date thing, finally, where she got to the point of saying, quote, dinner or no deal. And I just said, I didn't say no deal, but instantly my mind thought, yeah, no deal. And I said, basically, looks like we don't have similar interests. No thanks. And she kept on persisting for a while, to the point where I just said, look, now it's bordering on harassment. Leave me alone. Cease and desist. So, yeah, she came to me proactively with an offer of political information, and she used it angling to get a dinner date. That is
A good one.
so off. And I have to say, from my now years of experience with Liz, I'm not a clinician. Don't take this the wrong way, but I sincerely think that there is something probably clinically not mentally right with Liz Harris. And again, I'm not a clinician. This is just my offhand opinion, but I've seen enough from her. She behaves very strangely. I'm not the only one like this who thinks this. I've literally had other state legislators, other than Liz, not other than me, tell me the same opinion, that that's their opinion. Again, not clinical professionals, don't mistake this, but like, she approached me one day out of the blue at a state mandatory meeting in 2023, and I'm handing out flyers, stuff against Stephen Tyler Daniels, who's a whack nut Patriot Party guy who's, was trying for state chairman, and I'm handing out negative campaigning against him. Liz, out of the blue, walks up to me, right next to me, and she says, "I'm done with you, Morgan Perry." And I just kind of was taken aback. I was like, what do you mean? Like, this is a joke? I thought I was being punked.
Breaking up with you?
I thought Ashton Kutcher was going to come out of the corner, and I just kind of took it lightheartedly, and then she repeated it with just as much intensity. I was like, oh, I guess you're serious. Like, okay, what do you think I did? And she would not answer me, literally, repeatedly would not answer me. And within a short amount of time, she physically took a woman next to her who was on the other side of her by the shoulders and moved her in between the two of us so that we would no longer be able to have a conversation. And I just was sitting there thinking to myself, this is a state legislator. This is a state representative. And that's the lack of maturity in that person. I couldn't believe it. And another similar event happened at this last state mandatory meeting where we were walking by each other in the hallway at one point, and she walks by and she says, "Just you wait until you see what we have planned for you." I'm just like, oh my God. And by then, of course, I knew not to engage her anymore because there's no point in it. But apparently what they had planned for me is, that I'd have to be thrice affirmed as chair of my LD because they're going to challenge me in every which way from Sunday. And I don't think it's over. Like, they're going to come after me. Many of them made either veiled or over the top threats. One of them, Steve Robinson, which is, as I understand it, Shelby Bush's, what's that?
Her boyfriend, significant other.
Her adulterous live-in boyfriend, as I understand it.
Because she's married to
somebody else, right? He, being macho, started walking right toward me at the end of the last EGC meeting, and I basically just said, "Don't assault me! Like, don't assault me!" And he just went ahead and, kind of pushed his body through mine because he's going to be the man for his woman and for the rest of the cabal. And that's the nature of what we're dealing with in the MCRC cabal.
Yeah. This is not Republican behavior. So I want to share this comment here. Losers of America Unite. Great way to, haven't seen hard evidence. Report to the governor. 630 pages of evidence with 507 footnotes referring to more than 5,000 pages of documentary evidence. Want to discuss the facts? John Thaler. So if this is John Thaler, So what I understand, and I haven't read all of the book or whatever, but the way that it was explained to me is that there were 3 chapters of this manuscript that were given to Liz Harris, and that she actually said, I think on Jovan Pulitzer, that she received back in December. And so that this would have been December of 22, 21, right. 22. And then she got another copy in January, and then then she brought this out in, I'm not sure what the timing was, but there were 3 chapters, and she was talking about it and reading it and having conversations with other people about it, and wondering if there was a 4th chapter. There's supposed to be this 4th chapter, but that 4th chapter, because that 4th chapter was kind of alluded to, I guess, in the 3 chapters that there might be evidence, but the 4th chapter, just didn't really materialize. And it looks like we've got John Thaler, so I'll bring on his comment here in just a minute. But so I actually I have here a text. So this is 2 weeks before. This is a text that Liz Harris sent to someone within the party, and I got the screenshot of this, and I'll be posting this with the other stuff. It appears the book is a fake. This is Liz's words, Liz Harris's words. She says, it appears the book is a fake, designed to try to get us caught up in lies. I wonder if someone had you direct it to me to help trip us up. So there she is, Liz Harris, admitting that 2 weeks before the hearing that she thought that it was lies.
Yeah.
And so when I watched the hearing, I watched video of the hearing, and what I heard as evidence was a list of real estate transactions. And those real estate transactions are not like that. That doesn't necessarily prove anything. It doesn't prove criminal behavior, but there were a lot of them, lots and lots of real estate transactions. And, there may be criminal behavior behind that or not, but it should have been presented to law enforcement, not to the state house and state senate. Right. It should have been presented to law enforcement. And to my understanding, there was never any there was never any evidence presented to law enforcement. And
well, I'm going to throw in a little bit here too, because this is not personal knowledge, but fairly close knowledge too, that in the wake of that testimony and that committee hearing, like, again, I was eager to see it be proved true, because I do believe in a gross amount of corruption by our elected officials. Again, we're seeing it played out against Trump, undoubtedly. So it's not like I can't believe this stuff. I do believe people are corrupted and bought off and blackmailed, on and on and on. So I was totally open to it. And somebody close to me who's part of that MCRC cabal, who works with all of them, the worst of them, the leaders of the pack, and he's a data guy, very good data manipulation, management, and some analysis. He and some others got in touch with, as he reported to me, with John Thaler, and basically said, look, we'd like to do some validation. We'd like you to prove it to us. And he said something like, and I think this is a great approach when you can't spend, infinite time researching 5,000 pages or whatever, you just say, give me your best cases, like the most slam dunk cases that you've got. And they got that. They got like 2 or 3 or whatever of them from, I believe, from John Thaler directly. And they researched them, and they were nothing burgers. And that's what people who were favorable to the whole thing, our buddies and voting with Liz Harris, said in conclusion. Right. What more do you need? Like, they want it more than I want it. And they just basically said, there's nothing there. The best cases, like, if John Thaler can't do better than that, convincing people with his evidence, then I'm not convinced, for sure.
So Lois says, please ask Morgan and Dan about the fake letter sent out on fake Maricopa County paper using a similar logo promoting Morgan and Dan's team.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. I thought it was an impressive letter. I don't know what else you want me to say about it. Like, it was an impressive letter. The person, whoever it was, did, probably a minor infraction on copyright for the MCRC logo. Okay, whatever, could have been a little better, I suppose. But the information in it, I thought, was impressive, showed deep knowledge, deeper than mine in a lot of places. So kudos to that person for everything but the minor transgression on the logo. And by the way, just so you know, like there are people in LD4 who have been transgressing using our LD4 logo for their club that hates us for months. So if you, Lois, want to be even-handed, frickin' stand against that. Why don't you? You know, we can tell you who those people are. We don't know who the anonymous mailer was. We know exactly who these people are and what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So have some integrity. And if a violation of trademark is a big deal to you, then do something about this.
Yeah, for sure. So, and John Thaler, he says the book wasn't started until October 2022. So, John, I would just want to make this offer. Please direct message me on Twitter. You can email me through my website at biggertruth.substack.com. I'd love to hear from you. We can talk offline, off the record, and we can discuss. I'd love to hear the best evidence that you've got. I'll look into it, and if it's something that has validity, I'm totally open to the possibility that maybe you have, since you've written the book or since this hearing, that maybe some actually really good hard evidence has come out and that you have something. I'd be happy to hear that. I'm not going to spend hours and hours and hours on a wild goose chase, but if you do have something good, I'd be happy to bring you on the show and we can discuss that. What this is really about is about Liz Harris's lack of discernment and bringing something forward that was not what she said it was going to be, that really violated state and House rules, that made a mockery of the legislative process and both chambers, and did so without, at that time at least, it didn't appear that there was actually any real evidence. So that's really what this is about, and it's not it's not necessarily an indictment of you, John. So we'll kind of leave that where it was. Forrest says, Lois, your question isn't pertinent to the discussion. There's no evidence to support the contention. Either of them sent it out. I know Morgan's writing style, and that wasn't it. So, yeah. Thank you, Forrest.
It wasn't me. I don't know who it was. I have my suspicions, but I don't know.
Yeah. And so, Just Me says, just take her out already. Get us the information. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So, yeah. So is that an inside joke, Morgan?
Just take her out. No, I think he means like, when she wanted the dinner date. He's saying just take her out. Just take her out. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I would take one for the team if I actually thought I'd get some info.
Well, if that's all it took, just for all of us to have all the information that we need to prove that all of this, that would be.
Oh my God!
You've done such a disservice to the whole state, Morgan.
Oh God!
Oh, that's funny.
Hey, Scott, can I make a comment?
Yes, please do, Lori.
So my concern here goes back to the Patriot Party and Daniel McCarthy and Brian Ferencz, because Liz Harris was part of it for a long time, and their goal is to blow up the Republican Party, to make it in their image, which God knows what that is, but it would not be a party that will win elections, because it's like an inquisition. I was in the state Senate. I had a 97% voting record as a conservative, and now I'm a rhino, according to these people who attack me nonstop. And I'm just worried that because she's part of the Brian Ferencz crew with this MCRC, I'm very concerned about how they will disrupt and use this to suppress the vote here in Arizona by doing bombastic and stupid things that will not resonate with our voters. It'll make the Republican Party look like a laughingstock. Yeah. And I'm very concerned with having that relationship, because I know Daniel McCarthy personally. He threatened and bullied me when he couldn't get an audience with President Trump back in 2016. And I was extremely, in 2020, I think it was too, I was extremely put off with his tactics. And Brian Ferencz and all of them are using very similar tactics. And I don't think we want that at the RNC. I really don't.
Absolutely. And there are lots of connections there. I mean, some of them I can share because they're outside of executive session, and then MCRC has covered up some because they put it in executive session, and I can't talk about them. But there are lots of lines of connection between several of the cabal in MCRC and the Patriot Party. I mean, example, Patty Porter signed their, who's now a member at large and who was supported by the cabal to get that position. She signed the Patriot Party formation petition twice and did it once on the same page with Daniels, like in between the two of them. Like, it does. How much more do you need to know how closely tied they are? Then there are ties, Brian Ferencz and Jim O'Connor and others have ties. And again, they're all connected through this cabal that has voted lockstep, like Democrats, for and against things that you would just, be appalled at, that they all voted against ballot chasing, that they all voted against unity with the rest of the Republican Party in the state. Like, they just are a nightmare. And yes, it's been a nightmare in MCRC. We do not want this going to the AZ GOP level. We don't want it going to the national level. For the love of God, let's stop these crazy people and bring decency and conservatism back to MCRC and not have it spread, not have the sickness spread outside of MCRC.
That's right. So there's another candidate, and unfortunately we don't have her on today, but her name is Chris Morrissey. And I know, Lori, you can't actually endorse another candidate, but do you have any experience with Chris Morrissey?
Oh, yeah. I've known Chris for over 10, 12 years. Her husband was the chairman of the party, and he was a conservative, so he was attacked by the establishment. I mean, of course, and I helped raise money for them. I've worked with her. We put on an event with Herman Cain. We had 1,500 people there and raised a lot of money for the party. And so Chris worked with Trump Victory. She got Eli Crane elected. She's a very solid professional. She comes out of the corporate world, and she has a lot of skills that would be, and she's not divisive. She's a unifier. She's, and that's what we need, people who unify the party, who are working to win elections, and that's their filter. We need to respect one another, but unfortunately, I'm an LD3, so it's much worse than 4. There has been little respect shown to any of us.
You're suffering.
Yeah, thanks. I know. Well, hell hath no fury as a woman scorned, Morgan. But frankly,
true.
This has been an absolute nightmare. I've been involved as a conservative. I was the crazy conservative when I was in the legislature because, but now if we see what's going on in the party, it's ridiculous. So we have to go back to decorum, being respectful, working together, and wanting to win, and not censuring other Republicans, attacking other Republicans, or labeling. They're doing the right-wing cancel culture just like the communist left wing that has taken over the Democrat Party is doing. And we need to call it out. Therefore, I'm not afraid to do that. That's why I'm on this podcast, because we can't allow this acting out to continue in our party if we want to win. And we do. Because our country's at stake. It isn't even our state, it's our whole country. Yeah. We're about ready to lose the state. And with these antics going on, it hurts us. It doesn't help us.
That's right.
So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm speaking out. I normally wouldn't. I've never spoken out against, my chairman or my, even at the RNC level. If I have a problem, I go directly to them and tell them, look, we're not doing this right. We've got to fix this. We got to work. But we don't air everything out to the media to make ourselves a should be about. We're about saving our country.
Right.
And We need to expose this stuff because we are being infiltrated by Alinskyeites that threaten, belittle, and want to destroy this party and our chances of winning.
That's right. Yep. And that's what this is about. I think, the reason why we're all here is because we want to see the Republican Party prosper, because if the Republican Party prospers, this is our greatest defense against the Marxist push from the left. And that's also the reason why the party is under attack. And, we have people that are so clearly not acting like Republicans because they're not. and,
That's right.
and they've deceived so many people into believing that they are, and that they're, and so, to those, this is going to be a close vote. And this is the reason why we're doing this, is because from everything that we can tell, this is going to be a very close vote. And so, we just implore people to vote their conscience, not how they're told, and weigh the evidence. And so everything that we've shared here, I'm going to be sharing. So the biggertruth.substack.com later today is going to have all the screenshots of these text messages, so that you can actually see for yourself. I mean, that's evidence. The Morgan's direct accounts that he has said of, his personal eyewitness testimony is evidence. And he's shown himself to be a credible person. So, Liz, maybe we could have a three-way with Morgan here on the show.
Wait, whoa.
You know what I mean?
Not a good choice of words.
Yeah. So, and just a few parting comments. TD says, yes, common courtesy needs to come back. And, and that's really what we're here. So, and John, I will be reaching out to you. I would love to talk to you. So, I hope that we can have some constructive dialogue there. And, do either of you have any parting words before we sign out?
Just thank you for what you're doing. We, like you've said, you both have said, we just need the truth to come out. We have it. The cabal has a machine, right? They've got a handful of people with some decent reach in social media, and they are practiced now at pumping out propaganda, just like the leftists. They've learned from the leftists and the Democrats. They know how it's done. They do the, threatening people and intimidation. Michelle Swinnick, for example, at the last state meeting, I was sitting a row or two in front of her and to the side. When people were voting, holding up their cards, voting in a way she didn't like, she was literally screaming at them that they were, that they were child molesters and stuff like that. Unbelievable levels of intimidation. And, Lori, sounds like you can stand up to it. Scott, you can stand up to it. I think I can stand up to it, but a lot of people don't. And that's the way they win. They get those marginal people who are like, I don't want any part of this, and they scare them away. So we've got to fight and fight hard.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that they're driving normal people out of the party because they don't want to go to a meeting where there's fighting and censuring Republicans and not going after the Democrats and their policies that are communist and destroying this country. Yep. So we have to focus on the real enemy, and it's not us. It's not. And if you think that you're going to be part of a party and you're making other people in there your enemy, you're not doing any service to anybody at this point. We're not Mitch McConnell. We all have problems there. But the reality is we have to work together to win and do a ground game, get out the vote, and really support early ballot chasing. Yeah. It's not, we really have to beat the Democrats at their own game. And we're not going to do that sitting on our hands and telling people not to give up their early voting and go on election day, because how does that work out for us?
Right.
Yeah. So we have to be wise and start respecting one another and really demand that and move forward to win. And that's where I'm at. We have a country to save. I have children. I have not yet grandchildren, but I have I don't want them to live in hell. I mean, we're here to create, you know, the liberties that God gave us in this country and our founding fathers, and that's what we need to return to. But so that's why I'm willing to stand up to these people as well. But Morgan, thank you, and Scott, thank you for bringing the truth out, because, you know, when I go to my LD3 meeting, if you dare speak about the truth, you feel like you're in an exorcism, and people start screaming and yelling, and nobody. I mean, literally, we've lost hundreds of PCs in LD3 because of these antics.
Right. I have a recording. I was given a recording from an MCRC meeting that happened a few months ago, and they have a strict rule about not recording the meetings. And generally, you know, anybody that doesn't want their meetings recorded, they have good reason for doing that. They know that there's something wrong that they don't want the public to see. So I am going to be doing a show next week and just kind of tease it out that. Where we're going to be sharing part of the recording from that meeting, because, you know, as much as I have had guests on talking about how bad those meetings were, this was deeply shocking to me, how bad this really is. It's much worse than I had imagined. And
which type of meeting was this? Was it an EGC or a LD meeting?
October EGC meeting at which 4 members were censured. So there were all kinds of threats, and the supposed prayer at the beginning was really not a Christian prayer at all. It was so shocking.
Is this the one where Susan Cheatham praised Brian Ferentz as being one of our models and upstanding Christians? Is that the one?
Goodness. No, I didn't hear that.
Oh my God, she did that one time last summer. I literally reflexively moved away from her because I didn't want to get hit by the lightning bolt coming down. I could not believe that a Christian pastor and our chaplain was willing to profess that in her prayer to God. Amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Forrest says, how do you respond to people who are seasoned liars who claim to be truth tellers and freedom fighters? That's a hard question. I think that, you know, I tend to just ignore them. You know, if they're the leaders, I think that the operators at the top, they need to be recognized and they need to be removed. I think as long as people like Jim O'Connor, Brian Ferentz, Shelby Bush, Greg Berland, Ray Michaels, Julie McElwain, as long as they're involved in the party and in leadership within the party, I don't think that the party could be functional. So they need to be recognized and they need to be removed. And so that's my view. And that's why I'm exposing them. So I don't think that's the fault of the people that are following them as much. I mean, they're responsible for we're all responsible for what we choose to believe. But you know, what we need to do is just do what we're doing right here, exposing evidence and encouraging people to use logic and reason and to examine the evidence and examine their assumptions, their underlying assumptions, to see whether or not they're true or false. Because those who brainwash us, their method of doing that is getting us to divorce ourselves from logic. So, so thank you all for joining us, and thank you for joining us live and for all of your questions. Thank you, especially to Morgan and Lori. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know it's very valuable, and I hope that this is really helpful for those who are considering and really should consider the weight of their vote day after tomorrow at the state convention. So with that, we will sign out.
Very good. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. So thank you.